Hi, everyone. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a software called Zenwork Payments. Zenwork is the same company from Zenwork Tax 1099. And if you follow my YouTube channel, you've probably seen me do a couple of videos on Tax 1099 because that's the software that we have used for years to process our 1099 forms for our vendors or contractors at the end of the year, both for the ones that my firm has and for a lot of our clients. Now, Zenwork now has this new system called Zenwork Payments that allows you to manage the accounts payable process on top of the 1099 filing. So, for example, I have a whole bunch of contractors. They send me bills or they send me emails or reminders or texts or whatever saying, hey, you got to pay me this, got to pay me that. Instead of managing the payments themselves manually and then using Zenwork 1099 at the end of the year to do the forms, you have one platform that does everything all in one shot. Now, I'm going to go in here into pricing just to kind of show you the cost of the system is $20 per month. That's the base cost. And then as many vendors as you're paying through the platform, those you're going to pay an additional $2 per vendor per month. So basically, for $20 plus $2 per active vendor that you're paying through it, you will have the ability to enter the bills, approve the bills, pay them digitally, and file 1099s all in one shot, all within one inclusive price. You can also add vendors that you don't actively pay and then do 1099s at the end of the year. And then we'll show you that towards the end where we'll talk about 1099s, where you can also process the 1099s through the same system. That way you don't have two systems. You also have real-time TIN matching, just like you do with Tax 1099, just to make sure that they're giving you correct tax ID numbers, social security numbers, and they're not giving you some bogus information. And then you have a self-onboarding, self-service portal where the vendors themselves can submit this information instead of you having to hand key everything in. And we'll show you we'll show you in the video an example of that. I'm going to do a quick sign-up process so you can kind of see how it works. You're going to sign up, you enter your information, and then after you completely sign up, you will be logged into the account. I'm going to click on Get Started Now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the payer's information. The payer is the company that's paying the contractors. So we're going to start by clicking on the manual button. So we're just going to enter it manually, and we're going to enter the business name. Then the email of the principal contact over at this business or this payer. If I click on Add More Information, here's where I can add more details. Business description, tax ID or EIN, business phone number, and of course, the address. And then we go to more options if you want to create multiple, or we just go to Save and Proceed to create this payer. Now we have to subscribe. So we're going to click on Start 1 month free trial, add our credit card that we're going to use to pay. And after adding all the information, we're going to go ahead and just click Save and complete this transaction. Save. We click on Subscribe Now right here, and then we just click on Pay Now. So that activates the $20 a month subscription to have Zenwork Payments activated for this specific payee. Now we finally have an active subscription. What we're going to do now is we're going to add more information on what's called the KYB verification. This is Know Your Business verification. This is very important for banking. So we're going to look at any information that's pending, and we're going to fill that information out, such as a bank account. So we're going to click on Instant Bank Login, and you can also use the micro deposits process where you put the bank account information, they put a couple of deposits in your bank account, and then you go back and you verify that how much it was. But I'm going to use the direct login where I'm just going to log into my bank automatically. You choose the bank that you're going to have. And again, this is the bank that you're going to be paying from. And then you're going to enter your user ID and your password for your bank. After you verify your login, you click on Submit. You pick the bank account that you want to use as a principal bank account to make payments from. You can connect multiple accounts if there happens to be more than one using that login. You accept the terms and you click on Continue. And that should be it. At this point, you're just going to wait for all the verification to happen on the back end, and you should be ready to be using your Zenwork account. So once I get an email confirming that my KYB, Know Your Business verifications has been done, you can start working on Zenwork Payments. So in this example, for example, it says details required for KYB verification. When I click on that, it's asking me, okay, you're missing some details. So what you need to do is just come down here and fill in whatever details are missing. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So you put all your information here. You put here whether or not you're the company controller, and then you put your title here, whatever your title is, or you come down here where it says the person's a company owner, and you put your percentage ownership, and then you click on add representative, and then you click on save. And that should complete your KYB verification. And now your account will show active, verified. That means that you can get started with the process. If you happen to be managing multiple payers, which means multiple companies paying contractors, you will see a list of multiple payers here. Right now, I only have one payer, which is this Rockcastle Construction Company. But if you are in fact managing multiple businesses, you're going to see them in here. And then as you make them inactive, which you can archive them, make them inactive. You have different tabs here that walk you through the list of active, inactive, archived accounts. Here on the unsubscribed would be any companies that you have created, but you haven't yet entered the credit card information or activated it as an active subscription. Here under teams, this would be multiple people you can add to manage the account. That means that they could create payments, they could initiate accounts payable, all that stuff. We're going to click here where it says add member, and then we add an additional team member, and then we give them a role. So if you have a outside accountant that you want them to have access to Zenwork Payments, you can do that, or you can have them just be an approver or a viewer. So a viewer can only look at things. An approver pretty much just accepts and rejects the bill. An accountant has almost everything the admin has access for, and obviously the admin can do everything, including creating new members, adding or removing a subscription, that sort of thing. Okay, let's go into Rockcastle Construction, and we're going to load in our Zenwork Payments account. We already have our KYB verification, so we did that first step. The next thing we have to do is we have to create our vendors, our contractors, the people that we're going to be paying. If you are on this page and you want to switch companies, you can click on the company switcher up here in the top, and you can select a different business if you are managing multiple businesses that are paying people through Zenwork Payments. Now, to add vendors is a pretty simple process, and what's really interesting is there's actually multiple ways of doing that. I'm going to click on add vendor, and first thing you have to do is you have to choose whether or not the vendor, the people you're paying, is a business or an individual. Okay. And up here in the top, it will tell you whatever the cost is per vendor on your subscription. So let's say we're going to add Carlos Gomez. Let's say he's one of my contractors. I'll put here a phone number. Okay. And then 1099 qualified vendor, that's for those people in the United States that have to pay a contractor. And at the end of the year, they have to report to the IRS the fact that they get a 1099 form. So if they don't qualify for a 1099, you basically just click no on that. But if they do qualify, you click yes. Down here where it says add more information, here's where you can do additional things like adding their email address. So let's add the email address. Then I can click on invite vendor to add bank details. So if I click on that, I will not be adding their bank details. So let's say the vendor hasn't given me their bank information. Instead, they're going to get an email, and then they'll be able to put the bank details. That way they don't have to give them to you, and they'll be securely stored in the back end of Zen Payments. So you don't necessarily have to have access to that. So I know multiple vendors will have multiple relationships, different types of relationships. And some like to give the bank account and just say, just deposit there. Some never want to give you the bank account. So this accommodates for both styles. Now, if you click on add bank, this is where you add the bank information. I'm actually going to show you what it looks like on the vendor side, so you can kind of see what their input screen looks like. But this is where you would hand key it in if they give you that information. Then at the bottom, we have to put their social security number. Of course, if there is a 1099 situation, that's a really important thing. And then this is kind of optional information. You can put the industry. It's really not terribly important for you to do that, but it's useful for Zenworks to have that information. Then you put their address. And then you can click on W-9 form, request W-9 form. Now, it's really important that if your vendor is a 1099 vendor, one that you marked as they are qualified for 1099, is that you get a copy of the W-9 form. Now, I know a lot of people already have that form on file, so if you don't have to request a new one or anything like that, then obviously you will click no. But if it's a brand new vendor you're bringing in which you don't have that information already, then take advantage of the system and request both the W-9 and the banking information. And then we click on save. Now I want to show you really quick what it looks like on the vendor side. So if you requested them to upload bank information or upload the W-2, they're going to get an email saying, they've invited you to add bank details in Zenwork, and it's called Zenwork X-Force. And basically what they do is they click in here, and then they have to sign up and create their own account. So this is what it looks like on the vendor side. They'll sign up. And this is now the vendor side, which is really, really important because this is where they can upload documents for you. This is how you and your vendor will interact with each other if you need to. So it's only optional, right? So I know a lot of companies get all the paperwork by hand from their vendors and don't really need their vendors to go into a system and do things. But for those that like working that way, and I certainly do, I like working with vendors that work that way, that's when they will use this to fill in all the information. They can click on W-9 work form requests, and here's where they'll submit the W-9 information. So they'll click on submit now. They'll enter all their information and submit the W-9. And they can scroll down, and this is where they can add the bank details. As we mentioned earlier, you can also have them enter their own bank details. Then they'll click on add. They'll do the e-signature here and click on submit. And that's how they successfully submitted their W-9s. At the end of the year, they can look at their 1099s by clicking on tax documents. So if you also don't want to be mailing them the 1099 or physically handing it to them, they'll be able to see it digitally through Zenwork Force. So this is actually a really, really interesting piece. And again, they can update the bank information here if they need to. Okay, submit that. And if there's e-delivery requests, which you do at the end of the year, they'll be able to see that. So it's really, really neat to see what does the vendor look at when they use Zenwork Payments. And if your vendor themselves, also have 1099s to manage and contractors, then they can use, they can set up their own free trial. So it's also a great cross-selling opportunity for Zenwork to give the contractors themselves such a great dashboard, a web-based way of submitting documents and receiving documents from you as your contractor. You can also add vendors in batch. So I'm going to click here where it says accounts payable vendors, and I'm going to go into the vendor screen. On the top right of the screen, there's a drop-down menu that says add vendor. If I click on the drop-down menu, we're going to have manual and bulk import. So manual is what we just did, right? We just hand key the information in. Bulk import would be useful if you have a sort of like a spreadsheet file. It's a very, very common way of doing it. You got a list of all your vendors. You just come in here and you drag and drop that. I have my spreadsheet ready. And this is from a template that you can download and you can just fill it in. So I just went ahead and I filled in all the information, my individual, my business, vendors, emails, first names, tax ID numbers, all the information is filled up in here. And all I would have to do is just click and drag that file into here for bulk import. Now, all my payees that were on the spreadsheet have now been set up on stage for me just to let me know that they're ready for import. At this point, if there's any errors, it will let you know if there's errors. You can also pick and choose which ones you want to import. Again, assuming everything from the spreadsheet is coming, we're just going to say import and move forward. And now we have all of our vendors set up. Of course, we only have W-9 and banking information for one of them because we requested the vendor to do that. We cannot import bank information or W-9. Those have to be entered one by one or requested to the vendors directly. Another important example for creating a payer is when you're going to have a company that's synced to a system in which you already have all the vendors. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go to add payer and click on bulk import. And then when I do this, it will ask me whether or not I want to be bringing things from a spreadsheet, which I'm going to show you how to do briefly. Or if I have an existing Zenwork Tax 1099 account, this is the one that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I've been using for years just to process my 1099s and all sorts of forms that I do with that. So if you have an existing Tax 1099 account, that would be the option you would choose. Or if you have QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, you can also create a vendor in which you sync your existing vendor list and continuously sync with it. So you can have your database of vendors in QuickBooks, but process all the payments or manage all the payments plus 1099s inside Zenwork. So I'll do a quick example here. I'm going to click on into a QuickBooks Online, click on Connect to QuickBooks. Then it will ask you to log into QuickBooks and connect the file. Once it connects and it downloads all the vendor names, it will load them here for you. And this all came from QuickBooks, by the way. And then in here, you would choose which of these you want to bring in. You can uncheck them and just pick the ones you want to bring in. If there's any errors such as missing information, it will let you know, okay, we're missing pieces of information. That means you have to fill them up. I'm going to focus on the two that have errors in them, and then I'm going to click on edit here, and I can fix whatever information I want to fix in here. So, because you can only have one email per profile. So we'll save that, go to the next one, edit. Is the maximum number of characters of 33 to the business name. And then we click on update. So now that there's no more pending fixes on the individual vendor side, I can do pending fixes on the company setup side. So if something is missing, like for example, you can't have your underscore in the company name. It just happens that my QuickBooks file, my sample QuickBooks file had that. Make sure your zip code is formatted correctly. So obviously anything that could be wrong or missing, you would have to fix, then click on update. And then once you have 0 errors found, that means everything that you brought in from QuickBooks will import, and the new payer will be created synced up with all the QuickBooks data. So then I'm going to go back to the dashboard here, and then I have my subscribed company and then my unsubscribed company. If I want to subscribe that one too, we follow the exact same workflow that we did with the other one. And you will verify all the KYB stuff until you see verified and connected. And that's the company file that's connected to QuickBooks. So you either set up one where you manually manage your vendors, or one in which you have it connected to QuickBooks for the integration. So whichever path you want to go. I'm going to open up this one just so we can see. And then I'm going to click on vendors so we can see all of our vendors have now been loaded. So this is the one that's synced up to QuickBooks. All the data came in automatically. Okay, I'm going to go back to overview just to kind of be back in the home page. So we've done all the setup. We got our vendors in. We have our payers in. We can switch back and forth here on the top if I want to be on company A or company B. So we are completely functional. We can start making payments to our vendor. Now to make payments, we're going to go here. It says accounts payable. And you're going to have two options. You're going to have your bills and you're going to have your vendors. Vendors is that same screen that we were in just now. Under bills, that's where you're going to create all the payments that you plan to make for those vendors or contractors. On the top right, there's a button that says create bill. And there's also a bulk import. So if you also happen to have those in spreadsheets, you can bring those in. You can create regular bills or you can create recurring bills. So for example, let's go to regular bill, and then we'll create a bill for this vendor. So I'm going to select Carlos Gomez. Let's put a bill number manually. Notice that there's an area for you to drag and drop an invoice. I'm going to show you that in a second. I'm just going to enter them manually so you kind of see the process here. Let's say this bill is from October 1st, dollar amount, $1,500, whatever it is. You can also break it down by items if you want to use items instead of expenses. So if you're a QuickBooks user, kind of think of it like that, right? Where you could also use either the GL account or an item. I can save as a draft. And the bill is in there. So we have it as a draft bill at the moment. Assuming you were done with the bill originally, you don't have to leave it on draft. That's just an option, right? So a lot of people like to create the bills and just kind of keep them on draft. Maybe have somebody else come in them and edit them, that sort of thing. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the bill number there. And I'm going to go ahead and click on proceed to save it. So once I proceed, it officially saves it as a regular bill, right? It's no longer a draft. And here's where I tell it how I want it paid. So let's say I want to pay this on October 15th. If you have multiple bank accounts connected to my payers account, I can pick, okay, pay from bank account A or from bank account B. That's the from account, of course. Or you could have the option where there's also multiple bank accounts that the vendor has added, and then you could choose which bank account you want to pay them to. Generally, you don't want to confuse yourself by having your vendor create so many bank accounts. Typically, just having one, so you don't have to think about it, is the best choice. You could also click up here, it says check, and basically just send them a check instead of paying them directly. But I think that really the value of Zenwork Payments is to do everything digitally. After all, we're living in the future, so we should be doing that. There's options for payment speed. Standard ACH is 2 to 3 days. Fast pay is available, but there's an additional charge. So if you don't want to pay that additional charge, just do your regular ACH, which is going to be at the minimal charge. You can preview here on the right all the details, the debit date, the estimated deposit date, the dollar amount, bill number, due date. All that information is previewed here. You click on schedule payment and you are done. Now, a couple of things I want to mention about this process, right? Because people may do these things in other systems, or they may go into the bank account and make ACH payments with them directly. What's the value of doing them here? Well, number one, as you saw, being able to have all vendors in one place, saved, organized, is extremely valuable. Having the vendors have a backend process where they can update their bank accounts and their addresses and all that stuff, extremely valuable. Having a single place where you create bills that you can either set up as draft or set up an approval system for the vendors to be approved. I mean, the bills to be approved prior to being paid, extremely valuable. Having the payments organized by in progress, failed, paid, so you know exactly what's going on, is also extremely valuable. And being able to create recurring bills. You typically don't have all this power by going directly into your bank account and paying from there, or paying from some other systems. And sure, there might be other systems that do it like this, but this is super clean and easy to use. It's a great way to manage your vendors. And because Zenwork, the original sort of tax 1099 compliance company, they're going to do your 1099s at the end of the year automatically. You don't even have to think about it. So you're basically killing two birds with one stone. You're managing your vendor payments and settling your 1099s, staying in compliance the entire time. Now I want to show you a different way of loading a bill, which is by uploading a PDF. So I'm going to go to create bill, regular bill, and then I'm going to drag and drop. Upload the invoice. So we're going to select that here, select it. So let's say we have a PDF of the invoice. You get a preview, right? So my vendor, this is what the vendor sent me, right? So what this will attempt to do is to read the document that the vendor sent, and it's trying to grab as much of the information that it has that it can connect with the vendor and extract items from it. So extract the bill number, bill date, due date, particular details in terms of like the description and line items, and then you can obviously break these up as you want or select the right category. But it did grab most of the information, so it really does speed up the process. And once we're done, we just click on proceed, and the bill is created. Of course, you go to the next process where you choose when you're going to pay this bill, pick the bank account, the type, and then click on schedule payment. So there's two ways to bring your bills in: manually enter it, or upload a PDF or whatever original invoice you got from your vendor. Now I want to show you the process of getting bills approved. So right now we created a bunch of bills. As the admin, we didn't have any other team members added, so I could just create the bills, either make them draft or regular bills. Now, once you add multiple team members and you have a team member that enters a bill, another one that approves it, the workflow might change a little bit. So I'm going to click here where it says approvals, and then I'm going to click on rules, because the rules are how you tell Zenwork to work the hierarchy of decision-making when it comes to approving bills. So I'm going to go to add rule. Then I'll create the next condition, which will be the dollar amount. So I'm going to say, if the bill is more than $1,000, then this rule applies. Then I can pick a particular vendor. So I can say the rule applies to a very specific vendor or a specific subset of vendors. or you could just make it, remove that so it just applies to every other vendor. So you can make individual rules based on specific vendors or dollar amounts. I mean, there's just multiple ways for you to go about it. Then you click on Save Rules, and now the rule is set. Okay, so now the rule is set, and the company policy on the approval process is going to be based on those two conditions. So if it's either vendor A or vendor B, and it's more than $1,000, it will go through approval. So right now under approvals, I don't have anything. But if I go into bills and I create a bill, and I'm going to make this bill over $1,000 on purpose, so it triggers the rule, then I click on Proceed. And before making the payment, you have to make a simple choice, whether you want the standard ACH or the fast ACH, which is a couple dollars more, but gets your vendor paid faster. So then we go and just choose. Then we'll go ACH. We'll pick our standard ACH process, bank account from the vendor. Once it's entered, our main bank account, we click on Notify Approver. We assign it to whoever the approver is. Click on Notify. Now this bill is created, but it hasn't been scheduled. Okay, so it's there, but now it needs to be approved. So when I go down to approvals, now I have a bill pending approval. So depending on who's logged in, right? So right now in this specific case, I'm both the creator and the approver. But if once you create a team and you set it up in a way that one person creates it and only has permission to create, another one has permission to approve, then the person that's going to approve it is going to come here, click on approve or reject, and then basically they'll be able to look at all the details, and then they can either pick approve or reject. If they click reject, it gets sent back. If they click approve, then it gets set up for scheduling. So an incredibly simple and powerful system that can do a lot when it comes to creating bills and getting them approved and paying them and issuing your 1099s at year end. And then here in the bill screen, you can scroll a little bit to the right, or zoom in or zoom out your screen. You can see the payment status, so you can see whether they're scheduled, whether they're paid. If the particular payment failed, you will see all that information here. And then individually, you can preview the bills, you can pay them, edit, cancel. So you have a couple of options there. Now, these are all scheduled at the moment. If I want to cancel any of them, I can click on the three little dots and click on cancel. What that would do is that would cancel that scheduled payment. So that will get rid of that. And let's say I paid it manually. I paid it in some other way that was outside of the Zenwork system, and I really don't want to lose the bill. I can actually just click here and click on Mark as paid. So I can basically choose how I paid it, even though I didn't actually use the Zenwork payment system to pay them. And then click on confirm. You can see here to the right, now this one says paid, and I got two that are scheduled. So you can interject at any point in time on the electronic payments if you use some other process to pay your vendors. And finally, I want to show you a little preview of what the end of the year looks like, the 1099 filing. So we're going to click here where it says tax, and then we're going to click on e-file 1099. If you already paid for that vendor's active in your active vendor list, that you've already made at least one payment through the year, those 1099s are included. But if you created a bunch of vendors in which maybe you paid manually and you want to process the 1099s here as well, here's the pricing preview that you get. Then you click on proceed to e-file. You just get to double check that all the information is correct. Go to next. And then here's where you pick whether you have to do a 1099 NEC or a 1099 MISC. So typically a 1099 NEC is the most typical one. As the tax years move, you'll be able to do, the previous tax year. If you remember when we were creating the vendors, we got to choose like the expense category. You get to pick which of these expense categories count towards the filing. So some of these may not count, right? Where you are paying them for supplies or reimbursing them for travel or something like that, where that wouldn't be included in the 1099. So that's the important piece, is you only include the GL accounts that will be reported, and then maybe exclude everything that is not going to be reported, right? Because you may have a contractor, you pay him $1,000 for services and you reimburse him $365 for travel. well, there's 365 for travel because they gave you a receipt and it's a one-on-one reimbursement, then we exclude that from the 1099. And that might be a question you may have to ask your accountant if you're not 100% sure how that works. But just know that the system allows you to exclude those things if they don't count. Then you go to next. It gives you a preview of what the 1099s will look like. If there's any errors, it allows you to correct them. And then on the next screen, you'll be able to complete your 1099 process. And if you remember that drop-down list of categories, if you were connected to QuickBooks, it will bring that from QuickBooks. But if you're not connected to QuickBooks, you have to sort of create your own chart of accounts. So we go into settings, and then we can click on chart of accounts, and that's in here. So you can create your manual sort of chart of accounts in here that you want to see every time you create a bill. Same thing for items. If you want to create a list of items, hourly services, flat fee consulting, whatever it is. If you want to do that, if you want to track things by location, if your business has multiple locations, or by classes, if you have any dimensional data that you want to track, you can do that. And again, if you connect it with QuickBooks Online, locations, classes, items, chart of accounts, all that stuff syncs automatically in there. So you don't have to enter it manually. This is for the people that don't necessarily need to connect their Zenwork payments to QuickBooks, so they're just managing their bills directly from Zenwork. And finally, I'll click here on overview. That gives me kind of an idea of everything that's going on, how many vendors I have active and inactive, what's going on with my cash flow, total number of scheduled payments, basically a dashboard, so you understand where everything is. And that's it. I hope you like this video tutorial on Zenwork Payments. I'm going to put a link in the description below that should give you the ability to get an extended free trial for 60 days. So if you're a business owner that's managing vendor payments and you really want to give this a shot, use that link and coupon code that's down there, because that will give you that extended free trial. And hopefully this works great for you as it works for us. Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.